right? Are you proud to be Portuguese?
Yes.
Exactly. It's very convenient, isn't it, that you were born in the right country. Right? Now, I'm a bit confused because I'm English by birth, I'm Australian by passport, Singapore by company, Brazilian by one. The World Cup gets very confusing for me, right? It depends who's winning. But this framing is really important when we talk about life and leadership, because we get framed into very black and white thinking. And I think this is appropriate at a UX speech, because creativity is not black and white, is it? Because in black and white, you've got right, wrong, you've got good, bad, true, false. And yet, life is not simple. Once you start to travel, start to work, you discover that things aren't simply black and white. You know, I mean, just look at things like traditional versus innovative. Lots of organizations love their traditions, and yet you're supposed to be innovative. And if you're an engineer, you're trained to follow disciplines, and yet people like Nuno comes along and says, we'll break all the rules and make it fun and creative, right? And then we get the human versus digital, and perfection versus progress. We want to do it right, but we want to move it forwards. How do we do all of those things? So I want to give you a few ideas about how you might break through today some of your framing. That is my intentionality. How do you break through your framing? Now I'm going to use an analogy, a metaphor of a speedometer. And if you noticed, my first slide was a car dashboard. And I chose this for Portugal because I moved to Portugal last year and I had to learn to drive again. Because I thought I could drive. I had learned to drive in England, I had driven in Australia, I'd driven in Asia, I'd driven in the United States, but it was no preparation for driving in Portugal. And I've discovered that in England they drive on the left, in America they drive on the right, and in Portugal you drive in the shadow of the car in front. And so I've had to learn to drive again. But we all know that going fast feels good. I mean, particularly on freeways here, you know. I mean, I was going down to the Algarve and I was doing 160 kilometers an hour and people passed me as if I was standing still. So I know that you want to go fast. And what I want to do is give you a little analogy of how fast your leadership is. And during this talk, which won't go for very long because I know I'm standing between you and the free snacks and the beer, all right, is I want you to think about, I'm not going to test you, there's no exam, but think about where am I on the speedometer? Because sometimes we're going slow and we're stuck behind a truck. And that happens, doesn't it? And I live up the other side of Sintra and there's some very narrow roads, and if a tractor is going, you cannot get past. So we get stuck. And we want to look at how do we get accelerated results. And we start slowly because we are framed. We're framed into black and white thinking. We're framed in this is the right way to do it. This is the only way to do it. This is the proper way to do it. This is the way I was trained to do it. I'm right, you're wrong. All of those framings stop you moving forwards. We need to learn to step back and see things from a much higher view. And that zoom out capacity to look at things from different perspectives is so important. And that's why travel is great. When you travel, you get, what you think is the right way to do things. You go, oh, they do it differently in a different country. And it's not necessarily wrong, right? Unless it's America, of course. So, black and white thinking, yeah, that joke didn't land here, but that's okay. It works everywhere else. Black and white thinking, fixed mindset, reactive and blaming, right? It's really hard not to be reactive. And my internet went out on Friday. And I thought, well, it'll be back on, right? It didn't come back. I got a knock on my door from down my street, and the lady down the road from the only little street, little village that I live in, and she said, is your internet out too? And I said, yeah, it's out. And they said, yeah, we saw a guy up a ladder at the pole, and he had a van, and it didn't have Mio, it didn't have anything on the outside. Mel, you call it here, sorry, Mel. And so I was like, oh no. I wanted to react, it's my internet, it's out. This is like, I'm like oxygen and water and pizza. These are the things that you need, right? So it was very easy to react and blame, but there was nothing we could do. We called up Mel and they said, we'll send somebody on Monday. Monday came, nobody. Tuesday came, we're calling. You want to blame somebody, you want to face. Tuesday night, they turned up at 9 p.m, it's dark. They go up the pole and they say, yep, we can't fix it because now it's raining. He obviously works for Mel. Okay. It's raining, but we'll be back tomorrow morning. Well, praise the Lord, they came back on Wednesday morning. And they went up the pole and they fixed it in 20 minutes, and I'm very happy, but I've got somebody to blame. Because my next door neighbour had shifted from Mel to Vodafone, and it was the Vodafone guys that broke it. So now I have righteous indignation, right? I know who to blame. Doesn't that feel good when you know who to blame? But it really doesn't move you forward in an organisation, does it? In cross-functional teams. You see, if we are framed, we get into firefighting. Now, the moment you go to work, you know that you're firefighting. Your phone goes off, you've got emails, you've got SMS, you've got WhatsApp, you've got Slack messages. Everything feels urgent. The adrenaline runs, I have to fix it, I have to fix it, I have to fix it. Just like the people at Mel that were receiving my phone call saying, oh, you need to fix it. Right? So on the other side, we're firefighting. And I get hired to help people step into leadership. And you can't step into leadership when you're running into the fire. You can only... You see, the firefighter isn't the leader, is it? Not even the guy actually standing by the fire engine that's directing the people. He's not really the leader. The leader actually is the fire chief, who is working with the town council to decide where the fire stations need to be built and how we prevent fires happening. Which is very relevant for Lisbon, because after you built everything in stone, that was a leadership decision, right? But firefighting, and some of you will recognize that this is the speed that you're going at right now. That you're going from crisis to crisis. You're both following procedures and executing instructions. And if you lead a team, you're frustrated because your people will follow instructions, but they're not thinking for themselves. Right? They're like, yeah, I did what you told me to do, and then when you didn't tell me what to do next, I stopped. There's no ownership, there's no empowerment, there's no engagement. Now, the wonderful thing about the pandemic, there is a plus side, is that people working from home suddenly got more autonomy. They got more ability to make decisions for themselves around their time. They took more ownership, and a lot of them got out of this. So they took a breath. There's a different way to work. There's a different way to think about things. And I've been talking about this for a long time, but not as long as this guy. Plato, the Greek philosopher, said the first and best victory is to conquer self. And for over nearly 25 years, I've been talking about self-leadership. And because when you get on the aeroplane and they do the whole safety thing that we all ignore, right? They do tell you, don't they, that should the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling, you place it over your nose and mouth before assisting others. Why do they say that? Why do they say that? Does anybody know how long you've got? If the plane depressurizes at 35,000 feet, how long have you got before you pass out? Does anybody know? You want to try it?
5 seconds.
Yeah, it's under 30 seconds. It could be. It just depends whether you just took a deep breath or not. Right? So if you're busy trying to fit it on somebody else, you have no chance. So, obviously an air hostess. Okay, so the first and best victory is to conquer self. You can't lead others unless you first lead yourself. And you're such a young audience, this is perhaps where you're at. And some of you are saying, yeah, but I want to scale myself. I need to build a team, build an organization. And so I'm going to need to lead others. And so to go faster in life, we have to practice self-leadership. Now, everybody self-leads to a point. You're all here, right? You got here on time, well, most of you, and except for the guy that you gave a hard time, right? And you took a shower this morning, you cleaned your teeth, you got to work, you managed to self-regulate. But self-leadership, in fact, is a little bit like taking a shower, because in 2012 I wrote this book, and with a Dr. Anna Kazan, who is actually from Brazil. I've never met Anna. Anna lives in Sao Paulo. When I go to Brazil, I go to Rio. all right? I managed to write a book in 2011 using Skype, right? And that was ahead of its time. Now you could write a book with somebody because you've got Zoom, right? We did it together. We never met, but we both had an interest in this topic. She studied in the US, I was in Singapore, and we connected. And we defined self-leadership as the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and actions towards your objectives. It's a practice. Taking a shower is a practice. Right? Learning to play the piano is a practice. Right? I've been teaching self-leadership for nearly 25 years, and if I'm having a meltdown, my wife will say, go self-leadership yourself. Right? Because it is a practice. I don't do it every day. I try and do it every day, or I don't do it to my best. But it is a practice of intentionally influencing our thinking and feeling. So you've all got thoughts right now, right? Can everybody here think? Yes? Whose thoughts are they? Mine, yes, they're your thoughts. Now you're wondering whether I'm going to plant thoughts in your head, right? This is not a hypnosis show, but I could do that if you want, but that's after we have a couple of beers, okay? But you each own your thoughts, don't you? You have thoughts. Do you have good thoughts? Positive thoughts? Do you have negative thoughts? Oh, crap. Right? You have that thought. So we all have thoughts, we all have feelings. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative. The important distinction here is that we own them. And when we own something, we can influence it, right? When you have ownership of something, you get control. If you don't own it, you shouldn't be messing around with it, right? But if you own it, you can move towards your objectives. So there are three components to self-leadership: self-awareness, knowing what I'm thinking, knowing what I'm feeling, knowing what my inner narrative is. What am I telling myself? What's the self-talk saying? Is it saying, hey, you're creative, you are somebody who is innovative and you really can add value to this organization? Or you're saying to yourself, I'm a total imposter here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here, and I'm surprised they're paying me. You could say either or. The laughs here are a little bit worrying, but there you go. It just depends. Because we all have a level of imposter syndrome. Do we not? Yeah, dude, we do, right? I still do, right? So the self-awareness. Now, self-regulation, I talked about taking a shower, cleaning your teeth, managing your emotions in stress. How do we handle situations? Back to the driving, right? Somebody cuts in front of you in traffic. Do you chase after them and yell at them, or do you just go, hey, off you go, you have a nice day now? All right? The second option is much better. And of course, self-learning. And congratulations, I should all give yourself a pat on the back for taking time out midweek on an evening to improve yourselves. Most people don't. Most people don't learn after they leave university or school even. So, the secret here is to be the driver, not the passenger. Now, you can see the stunning likeness between me and Jason Stratham, right? We are clearly related. Not. Yeah, I wish. Yeah. All right. So, the key questions that you can self-coach yourself from today, and if you want to take a photo of this slide, you need to be regularly asking yourself these questions. Where do you want to go? And ask it of somebody else, or if you say to yourself, where do I want to go? How do you want to get there? Who do you want to go with you? Because it's really interesting who's going on the journey with you. You have to really think about that. And the last one, how fast do you want to go? Now, we're in Portugal, so very fast, of course. Okay. So these are some self-coaching questions. Mine. That's the key lesson tonight. The key piece of framing. You were born. You didn't choose the time, place of your birth, your gender, your ethnicity, your nationality, although if you had a choice, you would be Portuguese, right? But from this point on, you can own it. Now, psychologists and philosophers have come to the conclusion that we have very little free will. Right? Why are you here tonight? Did you make the decision? Did somebody invite you? What was the whole process that caused you to be? Yes, you're pointing to somebody, right? That's blame, right? Yeah. It's your fault that I'm here, right? So it's actually interesting how we make decisions, and even at the highest level of leadership, how people make decisions, the cognitive biases that go into those decisions. And I work with senior leaders breaking down how did you make that decision, or how are you going to make that decision? So the interesting thing is, most of what we think and feel is pre-programmed. It's an algorithm of our DNA and our childhood upbringing. But the interesting thing is that the moment you make a choice and say, this is my life, this is my career, I'm going to take ownership of my thinking, my feeling, my words, my action. The moment you say mine, like a 2-year-old, and by the way, that is my son when he was 2. He's a bit bigger than that now. But he was so cute, and he did mine. And anybody who's a parent here, your kid has said mine. It's clearly built into our childhood psychology, isn't it? They say it in Portugal, mine. And what do we as parents say? You must share. So actually we get deprogrammed to do the very thing that we should be doing, is taking ownership of our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And in this case, our creativity and our innovation. It's mine. Mine. So whose thinking is it? I asked you that earlier and you went, I hope it's mine. Let me just ask you that again. Whose thinking is it? Mine. Oh, that was just awful. Okay. Clearly we need the snacks. Whose thinking is it? Mine. Much better. Whose feelings are they? Mine. Very good. So you will no longer say, he made me angry. She made me frustrated. They are the problem, aren't they? I blame HR. Anybody here from HR? Because it's always they are the problem. Never, I'm going to take ownership of the problem. It's always they, all right? Whose actions are they? Mine. Ah, you like that one. I remember when Nathan was a bit bigger, being at rugby with him, and this mother was yelling at her son who'd done something naughty. And she said, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? And he said, duh, yeah. Because when you're a kid, it's group actions. To do something for yourself feels weird. What about my mum? What about my dad? What about my dad? To make your own choices, but to live your own life is what it's all about. In the poem Invictus, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment, the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. You chose to be here. Take a breath. This is my daughter. During the pandemic, we've been separated. And so to connect, you have to go and meet people where they're at. She loves Minecraft. I couldn't play it to save my life, but I learned because I wanted to connect with my daughter. So I'm a noob, that's actually her, that's a screenshot. She's in, anybody who understands Minecraft knows that she's got the cool armor on, right? So I said to her, I need to enchant some armor. Could you do it for me? And she said, if I did it for you, you wouldn't learn anything. Ouch. My daughter just taught me self-leadership. Those of you who have teams, those of you who lead individuals, those of you who are mentoring anybody, don't do it for them. You rob them of the capability to do it for themselves. So thank you, Tasha, for teaching me that lesson. Self-leadership is part of the future of work. This is from McKinsey last year, 2021. This is, and you can't read this, it's okay. Let me just give you the summary. They looked at 56 deltas, which were attitudes and behaviors that McKinsey saw were important for the future of work. And look, 25% of them are digital, and you're all going to be super happy. Digital literacy, digital learning, digital collaboration, digital ethics, all the stuff that you guys know about, you can feel really good about that. But look, 25% of them was self-leadership. 25% of them were interpersonal skills. So if you're a techie, but you don't have the first circle on Nunu's design process, which was empathy, then you're going to suck. Right? Because technology has to be used by humans. And 25% is cognitive thinking, which is stepping back from those frames and thinking, what's the paradigm I'm operating from? Now, I don't teach anything digital. I leave that to people like you, but I teach the other 75%, particularly this self-leadership, which keeps me busy working. You see, leadership in the new workplace is a balance of being human whilst delivering accelerated results. If you don't deliver results in a company, your tenure will be limited. But if you're not human, your tenure will be limited. Firstly, you'll hate yourself. But secondly, the US Navy SEALs have a very interesting maxim. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you think about it. And so spending the time getting to know people. I loved your Melinda, who's the little...
Melinda.
Pardon? Melinda. Melinda. You know, my first Portuguese lesson, I went, what's this name? João. And she couldn't understand why I was struggling to say João. She said, how could you not know João? Everybody's João. And then I came to Portugal and, hi guys. All right, so being human. And of course, I wrote the book about this, and there is a plug for that. You see, if we want accelerated results, we need to set clear expectations. What do we want to have happen? What is the outcome that we want? And I gave you those coaching questions. Where do you want to go? Do you have a clear expectation of where you want to go? If you're leading anybody, have you articulated where you're going? Leaders kind of fail abysmally to articulate outcomes and visions. They don't do it well, not very good at storytelling. They're not very good at drawing a clear picture for people. And the other thing they're not very good at is having a dialogue and a conversation about where that is. I was talking to somebody here from Lisbon who's a knowledge management consultant, and she did some research that only 8% of leaders are actively using digital platforms like Microsoft Teams and Yammer to converse with their employees. And therefore engagement is in the toilet. But they are drawing a conclusion. Engagement is in the toilet because you've not been at work for 2 years, so therefore we need to get you back to work, where the engagement was poor in the first place. Why engagement is poor is because we're not asking people questions. What is it you want? What is it you need? What is your contribution? What does Melinda want? Right? I know, I'll get it right one day. I got 6 more years before my test for my passport, because my British passport's useless now. All right, it's just useless. Mindset and motivation, of course, and right behaviors. I don't need to say anything more about that. I want to get out of your way and let you get down and have a drink, and I'll be downstairs. We'll raffle a book off. If you miss out on the raffle, we do have some books for sale. But I want to put this in context for you. This is a real leader. His name's Grant, and Grant runs a company that has UX. It's a software company in Silicon Valley. I've known Grant a long time. I knew him in Australia. He had a digital marketing company there, and I was his coach. And then I helped him scale that company to IPO, and they went to the US, and he's worked for a number of other companies. And when he got a venture capitalist hired him to run this software company, he gave me a call. I flew to the US, and we worked setting up the team for rebranding this company and launching it. That was in January 2020. Everything was great. Rebranded the company, got the leadership team together, everything was exciting. I flew back to Singapore, and then about 2 months later I get the call from him, or I called him, I can't remember, but he is figuratively in the fetal position, sucking his thumb. He's the CEO of a company, and he's like, why did this happen to me? The pandemic. Now, taking things personally, of course, is not self-leadership, but we can all feel that way. You know, why did they cut my internet cable? Right? Could have been anybody else's if they cut my internet. You know, we make it about ourselves, don't we? But the thing about the pandemic, it clearly wasn't about us, it was about everybody. And I said, look, Grant, it's not about you, is it? He said, but I had this beautiful runway for the company. We were going to launch all these new products. Everything was lined up. How did this happen? And I said, look, you can go home to a nice house in Napa Valley. Right? What about your teams? You've got teams in India, you've got teams in Europe. You know, how are they doing? Are you being human? And he went, oh, you're so right, Andrew. And he got on the phone and he called and he made sure everybody was right. He did that first circle, he did the empathy. And he got the right people on the bus, he got the wrong people off the bus. He helped build his teams. And I caught up with Grant in London 2 weeks ago, and and met with some of you, said this company has had 3 amazing quarters. The venture capital company is very happy. The point being, if you care for the people, people care for your company, and the company grows. Right? So it's always, always, always about being human. I want to leave you now with a strategy that I teach leadership, and I want you to take this on board. It's 3 A's: accept, adjust, and advance. Now, whenever I speak to an audience, I never wish bad things to happen to anybody, but neither do I wish that they do not. Because it is in our tough times that we really learn what we're capable of. Now, I haven't told you any personal stories today. I haven't told you about the time my business was disrupted in Australia and I had to live in a backpackers hostel, living off baked beans and rebuild my business from nothing. I haven't shared my divorce stories just like you didn't, all right? And we'll find out later who had the more divorces. But anyway, it's not a competition, by the way, right? The midst of the pandemic, I had a health scare and had surgery. There's no point telling you about those because you've had your challenges. The thing about challenges is or are, the thing about challenges is, thank you. And there's mixing languages there, right? The thing about challenges, you have to accept them. It is what it is. Grant, when things went pear-shaped for his company, this is what it is. This is reality. This is Stoic philosophy. You can go back to Epictetus, and it is what it is. The ability to accept the cruel reality, but believe in your ability to get through it. And if you haven't yet faced adversity in your life, I hope you don't, but you will, because it's life. You have to accept this is the way it is. But believe I can adjust my behaviors. I can step back from the frame, I can see a new way to do it. It's like playing chess, and I played Minecraft with my daughter, I played chess with my son. If you've ever played chess, it can feel like you're stuck, right? The other person's got you absolutely tied up. But if you zoom out from the board, you can say, hang on, I've got options, I've got choices. And where there's options, there are opportunities. And this is what I would say to all of you, is always make sure you're looking for the opportunities. Now, I love language, and opportunity comes from Latin. And it is actually the name of a wind. Right? Just like typhoon and hurricane is a wind, an opportunity is the wind that brings us back to port. So in the toughest times, look for the choice, look for the wind, and there's one that will bring you back, and then you will accelerate. The future is yours if you take ownership of it. Whose future is it?
Mine.
Very good. So, are you ready to accelerate?
Yes.
Then my job here is done. Thank you very much.